I have today is to start transitioning the chicken shed over to the winter use for the chickens. And what I'm holding here, if you've not seen my previous videos, this is my first attempt at my own heated water bowl and something more efficient for solar energy with my solar panels in my off-grid chicken shed. I'll probably explain a little bit more once I get it set up, but basically it has a little, this is a little mug heater, submersible heating coil you can put in your coffee or your hot drinks, and it basically heats up a mug of water or whatever. And it's 12 volt, and I've got that plugged into a timer and a temperature sensor. Now the temperature sensor is set to come on. Actually, it's probably lost its memory since it's been unplugged, but it's set to come on when it's below 0, because obviously that's when hope you can hear me. That's obviously when water's going to freeze. So my temperature sensor turns on the little heater coil when it's below 0. And when it's below 0, if it's below 0 all the time, I don't want this thing going all the time, because at night when the chickens are sleeping, well, you don't need to be keeping the water liquid necessarily. So I've got my timer, and so this timer in the morning, it turns on the switch, turns on the coil for, I think I have it set for maybe a half hour, so I have it maybe 45 minutes, so I have it set to turn this on only when it's below 0, and only for a half hour at a time in the morning. And that way this uses limited wattage, and the chickens get some fresh water in the morning. I have it scheduled to basically defrost, to melt the ice in the morning, so when they wake up, 7 o'clock in the morning or something, maybe they wake up earlier depending on the light, when they get active, it's supposed to turn on, melt the water so they can have a drink, and that's it for the day basically. Now when it gets really cold, I probably really need to have this going twice a day, but I figure if I can melt enough of it, they're not going to die anyways, and they'll get some water. That's the plan. Didn't work so well last year for a couple of reasons. A, this thing isn't insulated, so it lost a lot of heat to the outside, and I haven't figured out a way to remedy that for the immediate. I probably need to buy some packing material or something. The other option was to go to a smaller bowl, but of course a smaller bowl would be better. It'd melt it better, and I may maybe insert a smaller bowl in here to see if it keeps the whole thing defrosted. What it was doing was it was defrosting the center of the ice. There was a big ice block in here. It'd melt the center and not the outside ring when it gets really cold. What else? Here's the temperature sensor on the back that goes to this guy over here, and so if it's below 0 in the chicken shed, because the chicken shed's often a degree or two warmer than outside, so only when it's below 0 does it come on, and that way I conserve power. My problem last year not only was the cooling, the loss of heat from this, it's just thin plastic, but it was also the solar power. On a gray, cloudy day like today, it wouldn't charge, and this, it doesn't. It maybe uses 50 watt hours or something like that. I forget exactly what it uses, which shouldn't be a big deal. For I had 60 watts on there. In a day, it should have been able to recover that. But we had days where it was cloudy like this, where it was bringing in, 10, 15, 20 watts. And if you had that over a couple of days, you drain your battery down, and it never has a chance to recharge. So because I sold my bowler, I'm going to put my 120 watt panel on the chicken shed and get it producing, start using it, because it's just sitting in the shed not being used right now. I'm going to put that on here, as well as I'm going to put this in the center of the bowl, and maybe put a smaller bowl in there. We'll see. What I maybe should do is use my rubber bowl. Maybe I'll do that. That's a good idea. I got a rubber bowl as well that I use, and I can probably stick that inside here. That's a great idea. So in combination with the reconfiguration of the heater coil and a larger solar panel, I'm hoping that will be enough to really make this work, you know, full time and not have issues with maybe the water not, the ice not melting or running out of solar energy in my battery, solar power. And so those are the two things I have to figure out. And so this will be the second year. And I took it out of commission last time. What would happen is this was actually stuck to the side, close to the sidewall on the inside, of course. What would happen is it would melt the water fine. But before it melted the whole ice block, the chickens would drink the water down, so then there was no water surrounding it anymore. So it wasn't able, I didn't want to leave it on long enough to melt the whole thing, because that would just drain so much wattage, so many watt hours trying to do that. So I was trying to be conservative with it. But yeah, I'm going to go down and hook up the bigger solar panel. I'm hoping that in conjunction with maybe the thicker rubber bowl that I have, which holds a smaller amount of water, that it'll keep the whole thing defrosted and be a bit more useful to me in the chicken shed. So I'll be doubling the solar panels on the chicken shed and hopefully making this more efficient as well. So the combination of those two changes, I'm hoping that'll really make this thing work for me. These parts, I got these parts off eBay, components, and wired them together. I think it goes through maybe let's see, which way does it go? Maybe it goes through the timer first and then through the temperature sensor. And so, you know, if it's not below zero, even though the timer's switched on, if the temperature's not below zero, it's not going to waste energy and go to the coil. So it's kind of a cool setup. You can spend money on heated water bowls. You can get a 25 watt one for 30 bucks. I probably spent 20 bucks by the time I got these two shipped, and a couple of coils, maybe 30 bucks. But the problem with the heated water bowls is that they are on 100% of the time when it's cold. So they are thermostatically controlled, so they'll only be on when it's below zero. But if it's below zero all night long, minus 20, whatever, that water bowl is going to be keeping the water warm all night long, which you don't need necessarily. So that's potentially a waste of energy, as long as it doesn't take more energy to then melt the ice in the morning, which I did my calculations in the original video, and I didn't find that to be the case. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to try and get this set up. I'm going to take my big solar panel down, and we'll see you at the shed. Alright, so what I got here is, got my connector coming in from the solar panel outside, and I just wired it through the same place the other one was. The other panel was 60 watts, two 30 watt panels. The newer panel I put up there is 120 watts, four 30 watt panels. So I double my power. I'm going to take out the 60 watt panels completely, and I'm not sure what I'll use them for. I should, if I was really ambitious, I would go and put them all together for 180 watts, and then I probably wouldn't have any trouble getting power. I may do something like that. I may put the other panels maybe in the window over here, just to produce some electricity. We'll see. I don't know. I'm gonna try it at the 120 and see how that works, because it doesn't require any extra setup. I've got this connector here, which isn't a high amperage connector, but I've got where'd my cord go? Oh, down here. This is the male end of the same connector, and it's just going to, sorry for the camera wobble, it's just going to the bare ends there. So I'll put the bare ends, this is the solar panel wire, I'll just put it into my cheap little PWM charge controller. You can see my 60 watt panels have it charging at, not at, but the batteries are up to 13.5 volts right now. The one battery, anyways, this is my original Deep Cycle Marine RV battery. It's been doing well. It's really hard to say how the capacity is in terms of whether it's going up or down. I mean, I assume the capacity overall is degrading, but I have no metric to say whether, how fast it's degrading, how many hours I could run, run a 10 amp hour, I don't know, light or machine or whatever with it. I have no metric to say I can, I can run it for, I can run something for this long, and it equals or is less than the original capacity of the battery. I find determining battery health is really hard. There's no, you can do the specific gravity and stuff, but I think in the end that doesn't even really give you an idea of how good the battery is. You have to do load tests on it once a year, run it down to 0 and see how long you can run 100 watt light bulb off it, or something, a bigger draw than that probably, and just time it. Can you run a 100 watt light bulb for a week straight? Can you run it for a month straight? When you got it new, just for numbers sake, if you could run it for a month straight, with a 100 watt bulb for a month straight on 24/7, which you probably can't. This only has 115 amp hours, but just say you could. Then I go measure it now, and would I be able to run that same 100 watt bulb for a month straight? Is it 3 weeks? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 1 week? And then I guess you could figure out how long you've had it and figure out how much it's degraded over X amount of time, and figure out how many years you got left on it. If all things are equal, you could say, well, maybe I have 2 more years left on it before it's only going to run a 100 watt light bulb for an hour or whatever. It depends whatever your how much power you need and how much is useful to you. So, anyways, yeah, I have no idea. It's still working for me. It runs my lights. Flip my switch on. My lights are on. So that I've never had a problem. It's flawless. The only issue I've had is I think moisture gets into the switch here. It's a totally unsheltered switch, and it's just I think moisture gets into it, and sometimes it's kind of goofy. But other than that, I've had 0 issues. Never had trouble with this Chinese PWM charge controller. Works perfect. So yeah, the only issue I have generally is making sure I get making sure I keep the water defrosted in my bowl. So here's my bowl over here. I'm gonna finish getting the solar panel set up, and I gotta find the socket for that thing, because it's got the male end on it, 12 volt end. I'll find that, get that set up, and then we'll go from there.